Hi, and welcome to the holidaystoeurope.com.au travel show. My name's Carolyn Schonnerfinger, and this is episode 1. Travelling by train in Europe has always been a really popular way to get around, and today we're going to learn a little bit more about the advantages of travelling by train in Europe. In a moment, I'll be speaking with Greg McCallum, the National Sales and Marketing Manager for Rail Plus, and Greg is going to give us a bit of a rundown on some of the great reasons that getting around Europe by train is the way to go. I hope you enjoy the interview.
Thanks for joining us today, Greg. We've got a few questions for you that will hopefully help our listeners understand a bit more about travelling by train in Europe. Rail travel's always been one of the most popular ways of getting around Europe. What are some of the advantages of travelling by train?
Look, there are so many of them, so I'll give a few. I think one of the big advantages is the flexibility of a rail pass. It allows you to travel when you want and where you want. You're not restricted. Because of the frequency of trains in Europe, a lot of services are leaving every sort of half an hour, every 15 minutes. Not like an airline where you're you've only got sort of maybe one flight every second day or one a day, etc. The other part of it is with that flexibility is the pricing is really convenient. Set at the start of the year and it's the same price all year round. There's no shoulder season or high season or off-peak or peak, so really easy for budgeting and planning because you know exactly what your costs are going to be up front.
Okay, yeah.
So that's one of the great advantages of travelling by rail. Secondly, in no particular order, I think, the environmental aspects these days are a huge plus for rail travel. It's just clearly a much more environmentally friendly way to travel. The Eurostar actually commissioned some research recently, and that research highlighted that an Air France flight between London and Paris emits 10 times more CO2 emissions than what the Eurostar does.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
So that's not going to be the case in every, Western Europe city pair because, of course, some of the journeys are shorter. But, even if people are doing that sector, it's something that people do consider. And I think Europeans, so many European households are now sort of one-car households because they're really in tune with the environmental aspects.
Yeah, sure. Now, why should people purchase their tickets in Australia before they go? Wouldn't it be cheaper to buy them just once they're over there?
No, essentially it's a much better idea to purchase your tickets in Australia prior to departing for a number of reasons. And the first reason is a lot of the trains are yield managed, so it's like ordering a Virgin Blue ticket online. The earlier you can book to try and capture that Go fare or that Blue promo, the better. We all know that if all of a sudden you've got, the last minute you have to fly to Sydney or something, you're madly hoping, oh my goodness, I hope there's still some cheap flights around. So the earlier you book, the better. So clearly you've got a much better chance of securing the cheaper lead-in fares. The other important part, which a lot of people tend to forget sometimes, is just the queues in European airports are quite amazing. You only need 9 or 10 people in a line, and it's going to be 50 minutes because you've got, you might have a Canadian trying to talk to an Italian behind the counter. Then you've got an Australian and a South African. So the conversations tend to take a fair while just because of the language barrier. So if you're going to the station buying all your tickets, you'll find that I reckon as a rule it's about a 45-minute wait in generally all the stations in Western Europe. You'd have to give yourself at least 45 minutes to buy your tickets because, it's just, there's always, it's a busy place. There's train. I was talking about frequency before. The one I use all the time now is Madrid-Barcelona. That's now gone high speed. It was 5.5 hours, about 18 months ago. It's now 2 hours, 38 minutes. There's 52 trains a day. And it's a long way between Madrid and Barcelona if you look on the map, and 2 hours 38 minutes is flying. That's 350 k's an hour. But 52 trains a day taking 700 people, at capacity, it's just enormous. Just on that route we've got 36,000 people. So it is absolutely unbelievable.
That's right. So if they're all queuing up to buy their tickets, it's going to be a long wait. Yep.
Exactly right. Of course, most of the locals, and remembering that 92% of all European business is conducted by the locals, so 8% is represents the international market. All the locals will have printed off at home and done all those things. So I'm not suggesting for one second that there's thousands of people in line, but generally it is the international visitors who are going to be lining up because the locals have the ticket processes for the domestic market are very streamlined and very easy, and they just print it home.
Okay, yeah, great. Now, should travellers purchase a Eurail pass or just buy individual tickets?
It all depends on the number of journeys you're going to be doing and the number of countries. So the Europass is great for sort of high-intensity travel where you might be doing 5 or 6 countries in a short period of time. Individual tickets are great for when you're just maybe flying into Paris and you're just spending some time down in the south of France and you need a TGV ticket to Nice, then obviously you just buy the point-to-point ticket. We're finding that, 5 years ago, of all our European business, 60% was EuroPass, 40% was point-to-point.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually been turned on its head. So today, as we sit, and last year and this year, 60% of our European business is point-to-point, 40% is pass. So the pass business is actually stagnating, and I think it's actually decreasing. It's basically stagnating in terms of our sales still growing, so it's not actually decreasing in terms of sales, but it's decreasing as a percentage point to point. And that's because people's travel behaviour is changing, and people no longer, Australian travellers, for instance, don't go to Europe and need that, the 21 country global pass. Yeah. They're going to see all of Europe because they'll never be back.
Yeah.
Most people's attitudes have changed. They'll do, I'll just go down to south of France, I'll spend 2 weeks there, and next year I'll come back and I'll do Italy and I'll do Tuscany,
yep.
or the Amalfi Coast or something, so it's very, very different. So the other thing is that in some countries, like Germany, for instance, the point-to-point tickets are very, very expensive. So you only need even maybe 2 journeys, and all of a sudden the German rail pass becomes an option, which contradicts a little bit what I just said then. But in Italy, the point-to-points are really good value, so it might take 5 point-to-points before the rail pass comes into play. So there's the considerations as well.
Yeah, okay. Now, we've heard a bit about pass holder fares. And their charge in addition to a Euro pass. Why is that?
Okay, it's a really good question. Basically, the ones, the best example is in France, because they're the SNCF, which is the French Railways. They're the ones who introduced this form of revenue raising, if you like, first, about 6 years ago. Essentially what they're saying is that a rail pass is fantastic, excellent. We're really happy you've got a rail pass. But the revenue they make from the rail pass, particularly if it's, say, a 5-country select pass, so it's France, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, Germany, they only get a percentage of a ratio of that pass. So if it was say it was $1,000 pass, SNCF might only see $200 of that. It's all done on ratios, but clearly, people might have actually been on the trains in France 50% of the time. So they should be looking at $500, but of course, because of the whole straight ratio thing, they only get $200. So what they decided to do was introduce their own revenue stream, which is called a pass holder fare. So basically, at the moment, it's $15 on a high-speed train in France. So they basically say, okay, we acknowledge you've got a rail pass, but you also need a seat reservation, which is essentially what a pass holder fare is, and it gives you a seat. So it gives you seat 15B, just like an airline, because you cannot just jump on a train in France, Italy, or Spain without a seat number anymore. So unless they're regional trains, but about 80% of the trains in those countries are high-speed trains, which require compulsory seat reservation. So just like an airline, you wouldn't jump with a pass and just sit down anywhere. It's exactly the same concept. So basically what happens is if you had a France rail pass and you were doing Paris, Lyon, Nice, you would have your pass and you'd have 2 other tickets just with, and they're non-refundable, non-changeable. So basically you've got a date, a time and a train number and you need to be there for that time and that train. And that's basically how they work in Spain and Italy as well. It's a different way of raising revenue and it gives you that seat number, because if you just buy a point-to-point ticket, the seat number's on the point-to-point ticket. Yep. So you've already got that. But the rail pass, of course, is a voucher, if you like, or a rail pass. So you need the additional seat reservation or pass holder fare to get a seat number.
To guarantee your seat,
Correct.
Okay, great. So if I've got a Euro pass, when I first take my first journey, do I need to get the pass validated, or how does the system work?
Yeah, you absolutely do. So that's the part that you can't avoid lining up the station. So once you've got your pass issued from Rail Plus, it's valid for 6 months, and it needs validation. So that's quite handy, because you might be going to Asia first before you get to Europe. So as long as that 6 months doesn't expire, that's fine. So date of issue might be today, and you've got up to 6 months to get it validated. The reason why they need it validated is that's when the clock starts ticking, so to speak, because a lot of the passes, you buy a number of days within a 2-month duration, for instance. And as soon as it's been validated, then the 2 months is ticking. So you might have bought a global pass where you've got 10 days use in 2 months. As soon as the pass is validated, you've got the pass, we'll say on today's date, you've got 2 months to use your 10 journeys. And if you've only used 6 rail days, once the 2 months is up, well, it's bad luck. You cannot, the pass is no longer valid. So that's really all they do is they stamp it with their stamp, it's validated, and then when you jump on the train, you have to handwrite in ink, black or blue ink, that first rail day, or the day. And a rail day is essentially a 24-hour period, so you're not restricted to one journey on a rail day. You might do 3 journeys on that rail day. but it's only 1 day off your rail pass. So,
okay.
yeah, if you bought a 10-day pass in 2 months and you did 2 journeys per day, then you're essentially doing 20 journeys in your 2 months, and you've bought a 10-day rail pass, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. So what's the rail protection plan? I've seen a bit about that on the Rail Plus website.
Yeah, the rail protection plan is it works well with rail passes, and I guess primarily for people who don't have fully comprehensive travel insurance, because otherwise it would be covered in the travel insurance. But essentially, your rail pass is cash because it's a paper ticket. If you lose it or it's stolen, it's gone. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So what the rail protection is a plan we put in place where we'll actually replace it for our clients who actually take up the rail protection plan, and we'll send another pass out in the mail to them, or they'll go to a Eurail location, purchase it themselves, and we'll reimburse. But basically, yeah, because the reason why it's cash is there's no way of knowing, saying something was stolen or was lost, yet they might have travelled on it and they're just getting another one.
Yeah.
I think it's not computerised. There's no way of knowing whether someone's actually done the travel. So that's why most people will have travel insurance. If they don't, we highly recommend the rail protection plan, because it would be awful particularly if you lost it, which documents do get lost as we travel, as you know.
Yep, that's right. So just in summary, it sounds great travelling by train. There's obviously heaps of trains and they cover the whole continent. What are your top 3 reasons for travelling by train in Europe?
Yeah, well, I mean, we touched on a couple early on about the benefits, and the top 3, I mean, I think the number one benefit is the travel time. Basically, the speed of high-speed trains, at 350 kilometres an hour. If you're going to Europe and you're wanting to spend time at the major cities, so Paris and Madrid and Barcelona and Milan and Vienna and Amsterdam or whatever you like, and you just really wanted to, then obviously you're going to choose a product which allows you to move between these cities effectively and efficiently. And that's what high-speed rail does. So it eventually means that if you put it versus, if someone's just doing those itineraries versus a car, then it's going to give you an extra 3 hours at the Eiffel Tower, an extra 2 hours at St Mark's Square, that sort of thing, because you just get into these cities much quicker. So you're avoiding congested motorways at city centre to city centre. So there's no other way. Any high-speed journey under 4 hours is also going to be quicker than any airline can do, because you've got to be there, an hour and a half before check-in. You've got to get out to both airports in both directions. So it's just basically it's the travel time. It's so quick. The second benefit for mine is it's just such a relaxing method of travel. So when I've travelled on the trains in Western Europe, which I've done a lot of it, it's just such a pleasurable experience, because once you're sitting down, you tend to, you'll read a book, you'll have a sleep, you'll talk to the locals or other international travellers, you can drink champagne. It's just such a very, very nice, relaxing method of travel. And I mean, I look at the alternatives sometimes and you think, well, they're not always as relaxing. So I think that's definitely a plus. There's no weight restriction. So, if some low-cost carriers, if you've got more than 15 kilos, they're starting to charge you, €5 per kilo. Your carry-on luggage is analysed quite heavily as well. So if you get in early to a train station, you can throw in 10 bags if you like, and there's going to be no one's going to know, basically.
Sure.
You only have to arrive to departure for most trains, which is another big time saving, and a huge one, particularly and for corporates, but also leisure people who, have got laptops, and so many people now travel with laptops. You can sit on a train the whole time with internet access. A lot of trains have free Wi-Fi, in fact. Other people have got their own provider, and you can be updating your Facebook page. You can be transferring your photos from your digital camera up to your laptop, and then you can be emailing them to your friends and family. You can be accessing the local news, or you can be on your mobile phone. So that's something which is a fantastic feature versus, say, flying, when you can only spark up your laptop at certain times, and even then you don't have internet access because of clearly you're 700 feet in the air. So so that's another big benefit.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time today.
No worries, Caroline.
Listeners can obviously find out more about Rail Plus and purchase their tickets and passes by visiting the Rail Plus page on holidaystoeurope.com.au. And we've also got a brochure section there where they can order your fantastic Your World on Track brochure, which is packed full of information about rail travel in Britain and Europe.
Yeah, we try and sort of go less on the product and more on the actual concept. We find that people are really interested on actually how to use the pass and a lot of the things we've talked about today. So we've gone quite deeply into that. So yeah, if anyone's interested, they should definitely request the brochure.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, well, thanks again for your time, Greg, and I'm sure you've answered lots of questions for our listeners.
Wonderful. Thanks, Caroline.
Okay, bye for now.
Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.